Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, what I like to do is to create videos that I would have found helpful when I first got out treasure hunting. That is to say, looking for things like gold, silver, jewelry, silverware at thrift shops, garage sales, any secondhand location. Today's video is about jewelry jars. Now, I have found these things all over the place, but I haven't found a good one since I started making a video locally. Interestingly enough, I've found these in other states, and they've been other states than my own, which is Montana, and they've been much better. I found some really great ones when I was in Arkansas. Actually, two different trips. I found really great ones in Arkansas. I've found them in Washington State. I found a great one in Idaho. So I know these things are around in other states. You might not have these where you are, but effectively what happens is that a thrift shop will end up in a situation where they have like wads of broken jewelry, or jewelry they just don't know what to do with, or jewelry that hasn't sold, or they're just overwhelmed. And what they'll do is they'll just toss it all in a jar, tape it up real good, and then set it out on the counter. When these things are like 10 bucks, it's kind of a no-brainer. You just grab it and go. However, locally, part of my problem has been that they haven't been 10 bucks. These things have been like 30 bucks at my local Salvation Army, and other stores that I have had them in the past haven't necessarily been doing them, which is partly my fault because they're charities and I actually have started to help them sort jewelry so that they can get the most amount for their money, or most amount of money for their donations, which I feel like is the right thing to do. But it's also kind of hurt me because I don't get my cool jewelry jars anymore, which is sad, but it's better that they actually get the money for charity. So this jewelry jar actually contains a bunch of stuff that I've gotten from jewelry jars in the past. And what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to show you my process, because these things are usually taped up. And because they're taped up, you can't open them up. That's kind of the idea. You can look at it and go, hey, I want what's in there. So it's kind of a teaser. It's really kind of a fun thing. In fact, it may be one of the most fun things for me personally from a thrift store. So what I'll do is I'll show you what I do when I find these. Now that they're like 30 bucks, I have a rule, and that is that I need to see at least $30 worth of jewelry, basically gold or silver, for my kind of buying, before I'll actually buy it. And then just hope that there's additional good things in there, which there frequently is. So when you're out and about, make sure that you always have your magnets. I will link these in the description. These are just little neodymium magnets, and they're very, very, very strong. And because they're very strong, and if you stack them up like this, they're even stronger. Even though you've got glass, you can get a reaction from what's going on inside. So this magnet is really your best bet for trying to sort out if you want to buy one of these. So for example, here, you can see, if I zoom in, that looks like a couple of rings, and I don't see obvious signs of plate. I can actually read whatever's going on with that one. Well, kind of. It's not really coming through. I can't really read what's going on. So I know there's a stamp, and I know it looks pretty good. So why don't I just grab the magnet here? And you may have to tilt these things, but look at that. See how it's moving around? Oop. Is the ring moving around? Yeah. So there's an earring that's stuck to it, so I can use my magnet to just get that earring away. And then I can see if my ring is reacting to the magnet. Well, it might not be. Look at that. So in this case, since that is not reacting to the magnet, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to break out my jeweler's loop, and I'll link, if you don't have a good loop, I'll link in the description a cheap loop, which will do the job for you. And then I would actually just have a look at those markings through the glass, which may mean moving it around until I can get a clear shot of it, if that makes sense. So here then I'd have a clear shot and I can read it. So let me just go ahead and set this down, and I'll grab my loop. So I have here a little loop, and then what I would do is I would just use this. Now I'll have to do it off of camera here a little bit. Get it positioned so that I can read it, and then use my loop. And in this case, it says 14 KGE, which means 14 karat gold electroplate. So that is a plated ring. And it's a pretty nice little ring, but I don't think it's worth buying the whole jewelry jar for. So at that point, I would continue to go through. See, we have maybe another one, except on this one, you can see where the plating is wearing off, and it probably might, no, it doesn't react to a magnet, but you can see how there's plating wearing off on that one. So we know that that one is also plated. You can just use the magnet and go around and try to grab stuff. Now you will note when I do that, like this pocket knife in here is obviously really reacting, which can be nice for two different reasons. One is that you obviously know that your magnet's working, but two, it also can be used to reposition something. So if you want to get a look at a marking on something, for example, you may be able to do that. So like here, I have a little chain. I might want to be able to try to read what's on that. And I might be able to use this pocket knife to re-maneuver the chain around to get to that point. Now, as I go through here, you just look and see what you got. Use your magnet liberally to verify if something reacts. You can see how that's reacting right there. You know that it's ferrous, so you know it's plate. Now, there are some things like a very high nickel content, at least from what I've read. Very high nickel content silver chains might react to a magnet, but when we're doing it through the glass, probably won't react to the magnet. But we can just go through and you can try to figure out what's what. You can have a look here. It looks like we've got some pearls. They have some nice features, but you can also see, I'm not sure here. You can see that they look too uniform. The color doesn't look quite right. I'm guessing they're probably glass. Nice, but I don't think they're actually real pearls. Now, as we go around here, we will have just hit something that actually trips my, I'm gonna buy this, even if it's 30 bucks flag, and that's this right here. You can see, if we zoom in, that what we're looking at is a Greek pin. And if you look at the little stone, all the stones are actually staked in. The gold is actually bent around the stones, which is holding them in. And then what I might do is maybe it's still gold fill. So what I might do is I might just work it to try to flip over the pin. There we go. To see the back. Now that back looks really good and I don't see any markings. If it were gold fill, I would expect to see some markings indicating as such. So for me personally, that will trip yep, I'm gonna go home with this. And in fact, at that point, what I would do is I would just take it home. I'd buy it, take it home, and I'd know I've got at least one good piece of gold in there, so it's worth the cost. And in fact, the reason I put that particular pin in here for this example that I created out of jewelry that I had was that I did get that out of one of these jewelry jars. And this is the exact process that I personally went through to figure out if this jewelry jar was worth going home. Worth going home. So that's basically what I'll do is I'll go through and just keep using the magnet. You can shake these in a variety of ways. Sometimes they're a little more full, and when they're a little more full, shaking it back and forth like that can get you down to things and get things moved around. When I'm looking at these, one of the most common bits of gold you'll find on any of these would be gold chains, usually broken. So I see something like this that looks really good. See if it's reacting to the magnet. Now you can see how other things are reacting to the magnet around it. And those other things are pulling it, but it itself isn't reacting to the magnet. So that would be a thing that I would want to look at more closely. Now in this case, I've already chosen to buy this one, but that's a very good example of something else that might prompt me to buy it. If I found some, maybe there's some good silver in there. You'll find that, and we'll keep looking here. I think I do have some good silver in here, and generally that silver will be marked. Keep in mind, a lot of these, or at least most of these that I personally have found, are usually full of like broken stuff. So it will be maybe like a silver pendant that is missing stones or something of that variety. And there's a little Disney watch in there, looks like. That bracelet right there could be silver. We'll see if you can find. Now, one of the things I also want to point out with this is that despite me actually loading this up and putting things into it, I'm not even finding the things that I know that are silver and gold in here, which is why generally what I like to do is I like to take one of these and spot that one piece that says, yes, I'm going to buy this whole thing for that one piece, and then go home with it without looking any further, without trying to figure out if the other things in there are worth it, because then I have the fun of actually dumping it all out and figuring out what else is in there. In this case, I am going to go ahead and dump this out so that we can have sort of a two-part video here. The first part is, of course, what do I do when I find one of these jewelry jars? And that's deploy the magnet, find something that I want, maybe a couple somethings that I want, and then go home with it. And then I will dump it out at that point. The other thing that's very worthwhile in noting is that if you are seeing broken chains, and especially ones that could be gold, that's a really good sign, because it means that or like a big chain snarl. It's a really good sign for you, because that means that whoever put it together didn't go through all of the trouble of like separating out everything. Some of these jewelry jars will contain gold or silver, and the person constructing it knows there's gold and silver in it. They just don't have time to get it all out, or they're just frustrated. Like these big chain snarls are really one of your best sources of gold if you're, say, a stacker or someone who's looking for scrap gold, because oftentimes they know they have them. They just don't actually have the time or the maybe energy or desire to go through. So we're going to go ahead and open it up, and we'll just have a quick look at a couple things here. You can see some things in there, for example, like chains. I like the looks of that chain. If I open it up, you'll see there's all sorts of stuff I like. Old buttons, potential bracelets. We're just going to go ahead and dump this out, and we'll go through. Keep in mind that this is all jewelry that I got out of jewelry jars at one point or another. I just delved into my jewelry jar bucket and pulled a bunch of stuff out so that I could make this video, and then I seeded it with a few other things that I thought might be interesting. So let's have a look at these pearls real quick. Oh, they actually feel, no, they feel like plastic. Hear that sound? They're not quite right. Let's have a look at the clasp. So here we have stones that are made to look like they're staked in, but they are in fact glued in. So that's a very good example of a nice, but still not real strand of pearls. So we're going to toss that back into the jar. This is a good example of what you'll find in these jewelry jars, where you have, maybe a pair of something, but one is broken. So those are very clearly plate. We'll go through this pretty quick. Let's see. This is kind of nice. These could theoretically be silver. Those look like they're tiger eye. Looks like somebody made it and it looks like it broke. But if those are silver beads, that's actually worth pulling out. And I should also note that I partially wanted to do this because since I actually tossed all the stuff in a bucket, I have learned more. So for example, this was something that was just in my junk bucket, but now I know those might actually be, no, they're not. They're not silver because we've got verdigris on them, I think. Well, where's that verdigris from something else? I don't know. What do you think in the comments? No, these aren't silver. I'm going to toss it back in here. If I'm wrong and these are actually silver and somebody thinks that I should pull it back out, just let me know. So much of the stuff just gets so tangled up that it's just not worth the bother of untangling it. A lot of the things in here end up being like homemade things, which is I think what I'm playing with here. Or stuff that's just like absolute tangled mess. So if you ever are coming across an absolute tangled mess like this, so your second stage for sorting is again to deploy the magnet. And what we're checking for is we're checking the individual necklaces to see if they react to the magnet. So if they react strongly to the magnet, we know we're talking about something that isn't going to be silver. If they react weakly to the magnet, maybe it's worth a closer look. Or if they don't react to the magnet, like this, it can be worth a check. So there, this one doesn't react to the magnet. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have a look, see if we can get to the end of it, which we can right here. And we'll just check to see the quality of it. If this were silver, it would be telling us. I think it's probably silver plated brass. And this is where it would be telling us. It is not silver. So just because you're deploying the magnet, just because something doesn't react to the magnet, doesn't mean it is actually gold. It just means it's something you want to take a closer look at. This is kind of interesting. Do we have any marks? Oh, we do have some marks. What does this say? It says stainless steel. Yep. All right. So that's another thing that's noteworthy with the magnets. Stainless steel doesn't actually react to a magnet. So you just kind of have to learn what stainless steel looks like. All right, what do we got here? That's interesting. If we can get that out. Just get that out of our way. We'll keep plowing through this here. See what we have for reactions. So sometimes something like this is stainless steel. I think it's actually just steel with plating. Steel. No. So this will tell you real quick, as you go through doing it this way, what's worth a second look. What do we want to actually like try to bother untangling? Now, also noteworthy is that sometimes you'll have like a sterling chain, like this one. This one could theoretically be right here, but then the connections aren't sterling. especially with a lot of the homemade jewelry, it's just kind of whatever somebody built. So this particular one, whatever's going on with it, is worth my time to try to disentangle. Oh, it's actually earrings. So now I know that's not going to be sterling, because if it was sterling, the studs would be sterling, and they're not. All right, so let's just go ahead and keep going through here. That's kind of a cool, looks like a dyed stone of some type. Let's see if we can disentangle that. Oh, it says something. What does it say? It says 18K GP. Yeah. So that's just a gold plate piece. And I feel like at this point, this whole wad is something that we can put back in the jar. Let's continue on through. Oh, this thing came out of there. It's kind of interesting. It doesn't react to the magnet. And it's actually a very odd piece of silver. I need to do another video on it. It looks like somebody actually hand inscribed this, but the thing about it is that if we look at it here, it looks kind of like stainless. I thought it was stainless at first, but then I noticed that it actually has a mark on the little lobster clasp here. Now the mark is not what I expected, and I will read it off with my loop here in the background. Unless I drop everything, sorry about that. And it says 930. So when I found this, I thought, oh, that's a weird one. And it turns out, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the 930 is usually indicative of one of the new alloys. So it's something that they've used some exotic metals in. So it's 93% silver plus some weird metals to give it increased tarnish resistance and increased durability. And I forget off the top of my head what's actually in there. But it is an interesting thing in that it actually is silver. Not something I've come across very often. But we'll toss that over in our silver pile here. Okay, let's just continue through this real quick. What do we got? We got a bunch of chains here. Is everything going to react to the magnet? So the trick here is to be able to figure out, that all of the different pieces are reacting. Although sometimes you have something like this one. And this one is interesting because it doesn't react, but I think if we keep pulling on it, well, maybe not. Maybe it's just a little chain here. Let's go find the end of it. And see what we got. Yep. There we go. There's the clasp for it. So you can just check the clasp. If it's gold or if it's silver, it'll tell you. Unless the clasp has been replaced, but for the most part here, yeah, it'll tell you. And it is not saying that. And more importantly, this little extra section is magnetic. So this is to even if the rest of the chain is not. So you can tell that you actually have a plated chain. Just make sure. Yep. What do we got here? This does not react, but it's got a little tag, so it should tell us what's going on with it. And it says NRT. It doesn't say 925. It doesn't say sterling. It doesn't say 14. So that one, is just plated. Probably like rhodium plating over brass. Okay. Toss those in there. All right, let's just grab wads of stuff. You can tell these are not real. That's interesting. That's not reacting. What do we think there? Ah, it's an earring. You know what? We're gonna get this one out of the way. This is a good example of the type of stuff you'll find in these. Silver, but it's all basically just scrap. It's missing all the stones. But we're gonna toss that in our silver there. We're gonna have a look-see at this, because this is not reacting. It's damaged, which is probably why it's in here. So with this type of earring, what you wanna look for is the little itty-bitty markings. Usually, the first place I look is on the stud. And then we can see two things there. One, there's no marking, and then two, you see how the plating is coming off? And there's brass underneath, right there. In fact, you can scrape the plating off with your thumbnail. So that is just trash. Let's grab some stuff out here. Okay. So this is just a low quality fake gold bracelet. Korea, dead giveaway. There's a lot of the stuff marked Korea out there. That earring is just plate by the looks of it. Yeah, you can see where you've got your verdigris there. So those go in here. These can be silver sometimes. These are little Mexican bracelets. Most of them, however, and I suspect these two are actually, yeah, so we got a marking there. Mexico. Oh, somebody wrote handily alpaca, which means nickel silver. So that's not actually real silver. And then I'm guessing this other one's alpaca too. Yeah, same thing. So they look like silver because it's an alloy of nickel and other metals made to look like silver. This is one of the silver necklaces that I added in there. I got this actually out of one of these. And I think the reason that it was in there was that it just didn't look right. And the pendants, I find a lot of silver pendants in these things. And I think it usually has to do with the, whoever's putting the jar together just gets a bunch of pendants and they don't really know how to sell them, so they toss them in the jewelry jar. I know shoplifting can be a real problem. So a lot of the stores have kind of done away with having little bins of little bits of jewelry that you can grab. Here is Velma's brass ring. You can tell it's brass just by the color. If we were to polish this up, it would look really good, but it's not gold. I'll grab something that's gold to compare for you. It's close, but not. If you can see that there. So this one is, oops, that's 14 karat, and that's just brass. Goes into our cool stuff though, because like this thing goes into our cool stuff, I think. It's got a bit of grass trapped into looks like maybe a copper. And then it's a pin. Here's another one that could theoretically be silver. We'll have a look at it. Puerto Vallarta. And then we've got, our Mexico mark, but what we don't have is we don't have a 925 mark. And if you've got Mexican silver and it says Mexico on it, but it doesn't say 925, you know it's not silver pretty much. Now, there could be other cases, there could be edge cases, but this has too much of a look like these to actually end up being silver. Now, you might test something like this if you had it, and I have, and I know that it is actually not silver. Disney watch. I don't know anything about these. Maybe if that's got some value or somebody knows something about it, let me know. So we've got an old army pin or army button, looks like. Just drop that on the ground there. Oh, nope, no good. All right, see if we can get through some of this stuff a little quicker. So I'm not seeing anything in here that I really like the look of from a silver standpoint. Maybe these beads. Looks like that's maybe a rosary there. Some check this little chain right here. This might be good for silver. Nope, same thing as the earlier one. No markings. And then the little extra spacer there is highly reactive. So, for the sake of brevity on this particular video, I think you've already got the idea of how I would go through this. I'm going to just finish up here a little bit with a couple other things that are good to find in something like this. So here's our dang good looking ring. In fact, you know, the stones aren't glued in. They're actually held in place by the metal. And the metal looks pretty dang good, but if we check this marking here, we've got 14 KGE right there. So it's telling us this is electroplate. So it's a real nice electroplate ring. And in fact, it's not even like made out of something that's, oh, I guess maybe it is. No? So that'll go into our cool stuff bin. But yeah, I think that's just a high quality fake. Low quality fake. These are cool. These are Italian mosaics. Unfortunately, this one's missing, but they lay all the stones in to achieve that pattern. We'll toss that in our cool stuff bin. If you like beads or you like actually making jewelry, this can be a great way to get the materials. Pocket knife, little cheapo. Okay, let's have a look. I'm just going to quickly pull out anything that I think looks good or that I know I tossed in here. There's this looks like it might be silver filigree. I don't see any markings on it, but also the color looks really good for silver. Although it's interesting that they wouldn't put it on a silver. We'll toss that into our let's test that later pile. Here's a bit of Freemason gold. The reason I included this is that anytime you see old Freemason stuff, it's probably going to be a good jewelry jar. Just because it means that somewhere along the road, old stuff got tossed in there. And old stuff is less likely to actually be marked. And this one, we need to double check on and test on it. But this is a real good example of one that doesn't look like it's gold fill. And you can see like where we have like a deep cut into it, but we're not exposing any base material. So I think this one is solid 10 karat. Yeah, in fact here, yeah it is. See, somebody actually took a file and got in there at one point just to see if it exposed anything. So yeah, that's a very good one because it is gold. And I've lost it, there it is. Okay. So I'm coming up towards the end of this video. I'll just have a quick look-see at the rest of this stuff, I think you've got a pretty good handle on how I like to go through these. And I also feel like we've done a nice job of double checking my pile. And in fact, I think maybe we've just found, let's see here. Is that reacting? No. Okay, this looks like silver to me. And heck, I wonder if that's even gold. Sometimes you get silver and gold together. Yeah, we'll have to test that one. Little chunk of gold. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to get it out of this mess right here. We're going to see if we can find the actual end of it. And we're just going to double check and see. See that? That's not reacting either. I wonder how this ended up in my... Oh. This might have ended up in there because I also didn't want to actually try to untangle this, and I just planned on doing it later, and then it ended up, yeah. Okay, so you see how nice this little clasp looks? And then this isn't reacting. Now there's going to be a little steel inside the clasp, so the clasp itself will react, but I think if we flip it over, we're going to find, yeah, 925 right there. So why don't we go ahead and we'll anger the YouTube gods by making this video a little too long, but I'll just show you sort of how I like to deal with one of these chain snarls, these Rat King. And maybe, you know, what we'll do too is maybe we'll see if I can figure out how to make the video speed up. I'm not much of an editor, but if I'm able to do it, you're probably watching this fast forward right now. And there we have it. So now that we have untangled this and you've gotten much more of the jewelry jar experience than I expected, I remembered where this particular one came from. This actually was not from a jewelry jar, but came from one of those little jewelry bags. Apparently I tossed it into my bucket of jewelry jar stuff without bothering to untangle it first. Now you can see this particular one is silver. We've got the nice little lobster clasp marked 925. I'm not sure if that's gold, but we'll test that at a later date. Toss that in my to-test pile. This little guy was actually our big problem. I'm curious, though, what this tag says. What does this tag say? It says Shashi. Well, I don't know if that's anything, but we'll set that aside so it doesn't tangle up anything else. So we got one chain out of there. Got another chain right here. Let's see what this one says. This one says Italy 925. So that's a second silver chain out of that little pile. Let's see, is this one silver? Oh, maybe. Looks like we've got 925 on the pendant. And is the chain marked? Doesn't look like silver to me. So I think what we have here is a stainless steel chain with a silver pendant. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the pendant. Cool. All right, so that's something else. This one, definitely not silver. And then this one that had this on it, not sure if that might be silver. This sure looks like a silver chain though. We'll set the pendant aside and then we'll verify. Yeah, look, all right, so, oh yeah. Sure looks like silver. Do we see any 925? Yep, there we go. There's our mark. So, another silver chain. Can't complain about that. All right, so I'll wrap out this video. The rest of the stuff is not gold or silver. It's all stuff that I've sorted out. Some of it looks really quite good, like we saw that ring earlier. And obviously, it's worth taking a second pass on some of these things just to see. Possibly because you missed something the first time. But, you know, it could also be that you have learned something since you last put this stuff together. Oh, our little bit of gold there. Yeah, it was a good day when I pulled this out of a jewelry jar. But yeah, this is 10 karat gold. Yeah, so if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If I haven't earned your subscription yet, I hope I did. And if you find yourself a jewelry jar, make sure to have a close look. And if it's got something you want in it, come home with it. Or if it's cheap, because these are fun. Even if you don't find gold or silver. And I don't think, honestly, I've ever not found silver in one of these. I think I've always found at least silver out of these guys. But even if you don't find gold, you'll still have fun with it. I hope you have a great day.
Like this, I've been Thomas.